Hey there, everybody. How's everybody doing? I wanted to check in on you during this exceptionally weird, unusual time. Usually, weird is such a great thing. If you're on this channel, you like weird. You like the weird stories and strange phenomena and all that. Well, we are in a different kind of space right now, a different kind of weird. And I'll tell you, I was going to kind of kick off my year of telling ghost stories on Friday the 13th, this last Friday the 13th. And it was around that time I was going to put out my first newsletter. I usually try to put a newsletter out on every Friday the 13th. It doesn't always work, but it's always the goal, at least. And that was the week that kind of everything got super real for us here in America, where there's the European travel ban. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson are sick. The NBA shut down baseball. Basically, all sports stopped, and it was kind of shell shocking. I thought in that moment, like, who in the world wants to sit around and read about or hear about ghost stories? There's so much darkness going on right now. Do we really want ghost stories? And additionally, I didn't want to tell them. Like I that was too dark for me. One of the stories I wanted to tell, which I will tell, involved a cholera outbreak, which it's a little too close to home for right now. But then, as time went by a little bit, and obviously it's gotten more and more real. It's gotten more and more confining. Other things began to shut down. South by Southwest, I was going to go there for work for the wonderful International Screenwriters Association. But that stopped. Tribeca was my next stop, and I thought I'm definitely going to go to Tribeca. That's New York. New York doesn't shut down for nothing. And sure enough, that got pushed back. Who knows when these events are going to take place? But I was gonna speak at a paranormal event in Austin, and what else? There was a paranormal conference coming up in Rockford, Illinois, or it was a crime conference actually, but keep it spooky. I was going to speak at that. Understandably, got either pushed back or canceled. And more of these even smaller events went away. So first off, I want to say that this is a time where it's our job to be at home and not going out, not doing things, which we're only a week in, and I know a lot of us are going stir crazy, very understandably. I do want to say that in this moment on March 20th, you can still, go for a bike ride, go for a run. You can go outside a little bit, get some fresh air. You just can't do anything social. So I don't want people to lose that option because that's still available for us. So take advantage of it if you happen to live in a climate where that's nice and conducive to you. But one of the things I missed out on by not being able to go to all of these fun events that I really enjoy, and it's a big part of my year every year, is meeting people and hearing stories. I run whatsyourghoststory.com, which is a place for people to share information, share their stories, and hopefully together, I believe, a community, we can learn more about history, about ghost stories, and maybe understand things better. And we actually have solved, quote unquote, some mysteries about haunted places that we didn't know why they were haunted. And as a community, we've made that happen. We've put that together. So especially because all of us are stuck in our homes right now, living in this just extraordinary time. I want to still meet you. So if anybody's going stir crazy and they want to talk ghost stories with me one-on-one, head on over to, send me an email, I should say. Send an email to aghosthunterwatches@gmail.com. aghosthunterwatches@gmail.com. And we can line up a time for like a 5 or 10 minute Skype session where you can ask me a question. We can have a conversation. We can meet each other virtually. You can tell me your ghost story or something that you've heard of that I should look into. That's the kind of fun interactions that I get out of these paranormal conferences that I'm not getting right now. And I still want to be available for you if you want to reach out and just talk to somebody that you've never talked to before. Maybe the people in the home where you're staying are driving you nuts and you just need an unfamiliar face. Let me be that weird unfamiliar face. But getting back to that question of where do ghost stories fit in right now, it's not, to me, and I think probably anybody in their 30s or older, this really feels like a flashback to 9/11, where an incident happens and suddenly life is different. And I just remember walking around in a daze, it felt like, for weeks after 9/11 happened. But then the rallying call was always get back to normalcy. You know, the terrorists win if you just get stuck on the couch watching cable news and getting more and more depressed. You have to go back to your life. Well, we're in such a weird position that that's not possible. That's we won't be able to get back to our normal life for a while. But ghost stories, folklore, urban legends, the stuff that, again, if you're watching this channel, it's stuff that you're into. It's obviously stuff that I'm into. That maybe we can start to feel like we've got our normal life again if we continue to interact and tell stories. And so I will tell a story at the end of this. I'll get to a couple that involve my haunted locations where I've actually lived and have some stories of my own, not while ghost hunting, but just while living in a place. But that I'll save those to the end. And fortunately, also I've been very bad about editing, and I know my partner Dan Malone will be the first to say that. My historical research partner Dan Malone. But I've got a lot of videos that I have banked, so I'm hoping that I can start to churn those out from Gettysburg to Arizona and California, just all over the country. So stuff that I've shot that, you know, I'm such a road trip nut that I love doing that, and it's another thing that's not an option right now. So maybe I myself can live vicariously through these videos, and hopefully you guys enjoy them as well. And I'm also, in this time, very open to doing a lot more live streaming. So if anybody has a topic, if we want to start to build an online community that's conversational, I'm very happy to take the lead on that and participate in yours, or whatever we feel like doing, as long as we are getting through this together as a community, which is what it's really going to come down to. And I know you guys have been just beaten over the head with it like crazy, as we should. But good God, do what we're supposed to do. Stay home, wash your hands like crazy. You know, you're not symptomatic for about 2 weeks. And I think some people might never develop very strong symptoms. So you might never know you have it while you have it. So you're just kind of a carrier. And I'm in this weird place right now where, you know, I don't get out very much. It's just to go to the grocery store. But if I do, I wash up before I leave, just in case I am that sick person and I don't know it yet. And I do want to point out also that this is coming in at the tail end of our standard regular flu season. And if you got the flu, the regular flu, the not scary flu, earlier this year, your immune system is compromised for 3 months. So that'll make it even easier for you to get sick. And I am one of those people. I went to the Sundance Film Festival, and then I went back and forth to LA a couple times at the beginning of the year. I worked myself sick, literally. And I did get the flu by the time I came back home to the Midwest at the end of January. I was sick. So I've still got like 3 weeks before, 3 months, I should say, before my immune system is back up to normal, just from having the flu. So I'm just passing that news along to you guys too. If any of you have had the flu, good reason to be extra cautious. And I've never washed my phone so much in my life. So it's weird to just be hyper conscious of all of these things. But yeah, I think that's all I really want to get out as far as that. And it's just that, honestly, this is I keep saying it's such an extraordinary time. I'm really proud of society from what I've seen so far, other than the hoarding. That's people overreact, people in fear. And I guess you got to give people in fear a pass to some extent. It's understandable as long as you're not one of the price gouger type people. Those people just suck. But otherwise, like, life will never be exactly the way we see it. Maybe the handshake is actually extinct now. Like, kids a generation from now will watch movies that were made at this time period or earlier and be like, why are they touching each other's hands? That's so weird. But yeah, normal is going to be a new definition moving forward. But the really cool thing is that we're all, not just like 9/11 was such a thing that unified Americans, like, you know, conservative, liberal. You may not have always agreed with everything going forward, but we all knew we were in things together and that we were afraid of terrorists and ISIS, or the Taliban. It wasn't even ISIS yet. But this is so unbelievably different for today, because our enemy isn't another person or another race or another country or anything like that. It is, I shouldn't have said race at all. It should never be a race. I was finding the wrong words. but it's just another entity that we as a whole global community are unified because we want to survive. So this could end up being such a bonding moment for the whole world, which is, I don't know, I'm trying to be optimistic, and it's hard not to be in certain ways when you think about what's going on. So to fight off how are you not going to get depressed if you're locked in your home all the time? Use this time, be creative. That feeds your soul so much. I'm going to link at the very end of this after this goes live, and then I can put an end screen on it later. The guy that runs the International Screenwriters Association, he put together a little video a couple of days ago that's about inspiring you to pursue your writing. But honestly, if you are passionate about any type of creative endeavor, this is a great time to explore that. It's a great time to shut off the TV. You got to be informed. Like, give yourself 15 minutes at the top of an hour in the morning, and then don't go back to it. If anything big happens, you're going to get the alert on your phone. I was trying to do a morning and a nighttime check-in, and I checked in last night, and I just instantly regretted it. It was just bad, and there's nothing that I, sitting around quarantining myself, could have done to change anything. So yeah, it's you don't want to hide your head in the sand, but you also don't want to. It's very, very easy to get bogged down in it. So avoid news, get a little bit, and then cut yourself off and do things that feed your soul, that make you happy. So whether it's writing, doing anything creative. Also, it's a good time to get exercise in an apartment where it's kind of hard to maybe do jumping jacks and stuff because you don't want to be rattling the shelves of your neighbors. Yoga. YouTube has all sorts of guided yoga, and that is like serious workout. If you've never done it, yoga is the real deal. And also meditation. I know that if you've never done it before, it seems weird. I was very intimidated by it, but there's guided meditations all over the place. I strongly recommend doing both of those things. We have to really focus on living healthy and making the best of this weird world that we're in right now. Okay, so I wanted to get through all of that, and I told you that I would still tell you some ghost stories at the end. So here we go. So I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, north suburb called Mundelein, Illinois. And we moved into a house when I was in, kindergarten, first grade. It was a house that we built. So nobody had ever lived in the house. I can't ever say nobody ever lived on the land because historically, throughout ancient prehistory, who knows if Native Americans camped there. So there's very likely they did at some point in time. And I don't know. And so that's something you should always remember. Everybody thinks about is this house haunted? Like, well, the land has a history much longer than this house that maybe was here 100 years, maybe 30 years. The land has been here for, millions of years. Humans have been on this land in America for at least 11,000, 12,000 years. So who knows what could have happened at that site well before there was a house there. And I see there's a number of people watching. Thank you for tuning in. And by all means, feel free to drop a comment if you feel like it. And I'll recap really quickly, which is to say that if anybody wants to have conversations, one-on-one conversations, I'm happy to do 5 to 10 minute little Skype chats. This is not a Patreon thing. It's not anything like that, but it's just about the goal of being social and continuing to share stories. So just send me an email over at aghosthunterwatches@gmail.com. That's aghosthunterwatches, all one word, @gmail.com. That's a little series I do not frequently enough where I watch with a partner, with a friend. I watch a ghost story movie and then react to it as the way a ghost hunter would see this type of horror movie. That's what a ghost hunter watches is. So maybe I'll get more of those out this during the quarantine that we're in. So anyway, we moved into this house in Mundelein, Illinois, and I remember one of the first handful of nights there. I was laying in my bed and I heard boxes moving around in the basement below me. And at first I was freaked out. So again, like I'm saying, I was first grade, something like that. I was a little kid. And I was afraid somebody broke in because, we had those windows, like window wells, you can kind of scoop down and go in. But then I realized that there's so much noise down there. Like these boxes are being tossed around. If somebody broke in, they would be sneaky. They would be not trying to make so much noise. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe an animal got in, maybe a raccoon, or maybe the window kind of leaned in and a raccoon got in and is digging through our stuff. And so I was kind of excited, like boy, tomorrow, I can't wait to see the mess that is down there. And I got up and I walked into the basement, and we hadn't yet moved any boxes into the basement. So there were, I don't know, to this day, I have no idea what that sound was. But it was just so undeniable that it really freaked me out that night. And then I guess freaked me out even more, realizing that there's nothing down there that could have made those sounds. Um, and that when you move into a house, when you renovate a house, when you're moving out and somebody else is moving in, any type of like transitional period like that, that can really be an active time for a paranormal occurrence. So I still don't know what that was. We jump ahead a ways, and we had once 1999 rolled around, and I began doing the documentary Voices from the Grave, not yet Voices from the Chicago Grave. Activity really picked up. So in this documentary, which is, I made this when I was 18 and this summer after high school ended, and thank you for the thumbs ups and all that. I do appreciate it. In the summer after high school, myself, Jeff Lord, Jason Jacobs, we ended up going to like 8 or 9 of the most haunted locations around Chicago. We started at Calvary Cemetery in Evanston, which is not that haunted, but it's got a great story about the aviator. But then we went down to Resurrection Mary territory, where we went to the Willowbrook Ballroom, St. James Church, Resurrection Cemetery itself, Chet's Melody Lounge. We had a paranormal experience at the Willowbrook. Archer Avenue itself is haunted. Archer Wood Cemetery is the freakiest place we went, I would say, on that trip. But we also went to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery for a different chapter of this documentary. And the grand finale was the Sunnybrook, what was the nickname? Sunnybrook Asylum was the nickname for this place up in the Fox Lake Ingleside area that was at one point a tuberculosis sanatorium, but before that it was a utopian society, which is it's got a big fascinating story. But I don't know what went on there, but I'll tell you, it was dark. There was dark energy. It was uncomfortable there. It was one of the most unnerving places I've ever been in my life. Anyway, so we go to all these places in the span of a few weeks, and I don't know if there was an attachment or what, but activity began at the house fairly quickly. I think my mom got the coolest story out of it, where she was in the basement and she heard somebody walking around on the main floor, and it was middle of the day on a weekday, and she thought maybe my dad came home for lunch. And so she came up to say hi to him, and he wasn't there, but now she heard somebody walking on the second story. Oh, okay, I guess he went upstairs. So she goes up there, and now that she's up there, she hears someone stomping on the roof of the house. So at that point, she said, okay, I'm going back to work. So she went down to the basement and didn't investigate further. She's always been the most level-headed person I know, so that was probably the best move. But other people have, around this time, had instances of like doorknobs rattling. I had my name called out to me once or twice, where there wasn't anything spooky about it, even like, oh, somebody's calling me. Oh, wait, no, I'm home alone. Anytime you have a paranormal experience where you don't know it's paranormal in the time, I think those are the most legitimate, because you're not trying to find anything. You're not even questioning. You're just taking in information. But we did see a ghost light in the backyard. Very interestingly, just twice ever. Once was the day I was pitching the idea of doing a documentary to the people that ended up being my co-hosts, Jeff and Jason. We didn't even know what ghost lights were yet. I was still very new into my research, so didn't know what that was. And then we didn't see it again until the last day of shooting, which was just so wild that that type of paranormal experience just bookended the experience of shooting the documentary. So I wanted to mention, I meant to mention earlier too, that, getting back to telling ghost stories, if you want right now, we just put a great episode of a podcast out called the show is the Fantastic Story Society. I co-hosted it with Max Tim, and it's about the art of telling scary stories. And we just had on Robin and Ted Williams and Robin Davis, who run the Haunted Galena Tour Company in this great, wonderful, haunted, locked in like mid-1800s town of Galena, Illinois. And if you just search for it on iTunes, I don't know if it's on Stitcher, but if you search for the Fantastic Stories, actually look for it on Facebook as well. You could hear some really great stories. And in that, I started to tell Max and I, in the introduction, we started to talk about a haunted house we lived in Los Angeles. And we told a lot of great stories of what happened to us and the people we lived with in this house. That we got stuff on recorder, stuff that's on YouTube you can see, but a lot more personal stories that unfortunately didn't happen to us, but people that we trust that were at the house. But in telling all of these stories, I kind of forgot one of the most insane ones that actually happened to me. I was so focused on covering everybody else's stories. So I guess I'll end off with this one, and it's a little bit longer. So my buddy Max, I have known him since college. He's one of my best friends, great guy. And he is somebody that on occasion would consult with I don't know what he called her. If he was a psychic or a medium or a guide or just somebody to kind of talk to on that other kind of like plane of existence. I think he would do it like once or twice a year. So not a regular thing, but he would check in with this woman. And at one of his early meetings, he asked her, like, do I have spirit guides? Do I have people around me? And she said, absolutely. You've got, in addition to a couple others, one of them is a grandmother that you've never met. And it's true, Max didn't know one of his grandparents. And she's like, oh, wow, that's neat. And she's apparently the one that like really is most actively looking over him and trying to kick him in the butt to do the right thing, that kind of a thing. And he asked her, is there ever any way for me to know that she's around? And she said, this person, Charisse is her name. She said, have you ever felt like you are walking and you walk through a spider web, but then there's nothing there? And like that resonated so much with me, not because it happens to me, but because I'm around Max a lot and I see him freak out all the time, like a Brian Regan sketch. Where like he could be the middle person in an 11-person single file line, and he's the one guy that somehow walks through a spider web. So I know that like that couldn't possibly happen. Somebody else would have gone through it, but somehow Max is the unlucky sap that walked into it. But it turns out maybe he's not the unlucky sap. It was just his spirit guide grandmother that's checking in on him, letting him know that she's there. So I thought that was just amazing in and of itself. Now, jump forward a month or so, and I released the movie, the documentary with Jay Bachochin and Neil Sanders, The Hidden Truth, which is about the Crosse Drownings, the series of mysterious drownings that have gone on in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and a paranormal investigation into the history and activity up there, which is one of the most unusual and amazing stories I've ever gotten to be a part of. I was a fly on the wall. I was just a documentarian. I was not an investigator at all. So this movie was premiering in Onalaska, Wisconsin. I was living in Los Angeles. I couldn't get back in time for it. So I thought, well, the one thing I can do is I can put myself on camera and talk to the audience to introduce the film. So that's something I can do. At that time, I was working at a print shop in Santa Monica. So I was racing home because we had this nice little porch at this house. We're in mid-city Los Angeles. House was built in like 1919, I think it was, 1918, somewhere around there. And just an incredible place with a long history. But we had this nice little balcony, and I thought, oh, that could be if there's enough light left, there's enough sunlight, I'm going to set it up there. You can see the green trees and whatnot behind me. It's better than just being in a basement hunkered down like I am now. So I get home and I run upstairs and I run out to the balcony. Like, okay, everything looks great. So then I'm running up and down, bringing up the tripod, the light, a reflector, I should say, the camera. I'm getting everything set up to what I need. And on one of the last runs back downstairs, I will run through a spider web. What? That can't happen. And of course, it's fresh in my mind that Max has his story. And so right now I'm obviously very focused on trying to get this shot before I lose the light. But two, I know in the back of my mind, maybe something's in there that's fooling me into thinking I just had something happen. So like I'm trying to pull the spider web off. I'm looking at my hand and to see that there's no cobweb in my hand. And as I'm looking at my hand, I totally feels like a finger with a nail on it just run across my hand like that. And so then I'm just totally dumbfounded at looking at my hand, feeling the sensation, and I'm flat-footed. And then no sooner do I feel whack, just my ear, the cartilage gets flicked so freaking hard and makes my ear ring. And I think if that was Max's grandma, even though Max wasn't there at that time, she's like, hey, Come on, you're still working here. Get back to work. So I still like, I can't for the life of me explain any moment of that, but that was I always talk about like wanting to feel. I kind of forget about that story sometimes because it's just so wild and cool. But you know, I see those ghost hunter type shows where people get scratched. I'm like, I want that to happen, and I still do. I want to have all the experiences you can have. But I got my ear flicked by some phantom hand that was telling me to get back to work, and look at that. I'm smiling. I'm telling a ghost story. Life is normal again. So thank you all for watching. I hope this was a diversion for you. I hope this inspires you to do anything positive to make your day more exciting and fun. Be creative. Reach out to me. Let's tell stories. And we're, as everything else, we're always going to get through it all together. Thank you so much. And I hope to talk to you soon.